Let's give our praises to the Most High, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, whose true name in ancient Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, and the Holy Spirit, which in the ancient Hebrew is the Rakak Wadash. Double honors to the elders of GMS, who taught us this truth by the Holy Spirit. Honors to the brothers risking their life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect, who would be the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, according to scripture and prophecy. The elect would be 1/3 of the Israelites who in the last days will return back to the Most High to receive salvation. While the 2/3 of Israel who don't turn back to the Most High be destroyed here in America. We back with another lesson through the mercy of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shah. I don't have a title, so we'll name it after. But we're going to pretty much talk about this video that I'm going to play. And he's speaking about how he's noticing that only the Northern Kingdom, so-called Mexicans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, etc., are being snatched up and abducted by ICE. And no other foreigner, stranger, immigrant, just the Northern Kingdom, in which we've been telling the people that this is a war against the 12 tribes. So I've been showing this picture since the beginning of the year. And it was created by an Edomite. And look what it says, Trump's war on brown-skinned people. Well, what do these three people have in common? They appear to be different, but they really the same people, same nation. You know, because they share a common ancestor, going back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This would be the 12 tribes, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. So it's not Trump's war on brown-skinned people, it's war against the 12 tribes. So we're going to get this video. I'm going to try to play it through, then we may run it back and get a few things here and there.
I have noticed something very, very strange with ICE, and I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but if you notice, when Biden was president, there was millions of people coming across the border, and it was all types. People from Honduras, Bosnia, people from China, people from Czechoslovakia. I mean, it was people from all over the world, and by the thousands, the millions, everyone. Every ethnicity you can imagine was coming across the border, right? But now, when you see all of these ICE agents doing all these raids and arresting all these people, you're only seeing Hispanic people being arrested. You're not seeing any of the thousands of Chinese that came across the border illegally. They're not getting messed with. Or all the thousands of Muslims that came across the border illegally. They're not messing with them. They are only arresting Hispanics and Hondurans and people from that part of the world, people that speak Spanish. And I have not seen the first Chinese illegal immigrant get arrested or the first Muslim. It's only Hispanic people. Why is that? Why are they going after the people that just want to make a better life, but they're leaving the people alone that truly hate us? The ones that are running down the streets with Hamas flags, screaming death to America, and none of them are being taken by ICE, and only the ones that are working, trying to make a better life. Those are the ones that aren't allowed to be here. Make that make sense.
In more Supreme Court news, the private prison company Geo Group.
So that was pretty much it. We've been telling the people the whole year that what's happening is not by coincidence, but I guess now people are starting to notice or starting to ask why. But like you say, you know, all these Pakistanians, Arabs, so-called Africans, you know, so-called Kenyans, you know, people from Iraq, Russia, Ukraine, white South Africans, you know, people from all over the world coming here, all these Chinese people, all the Koreans, but they're only snatching up the Northern Kingdom, so-called Hispanics, Latin Americans, whatever you want to call them. But he said something in the beginning that we're going to get, but let me get this real quick. Thus says Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast, and they refused to let them go. So yeah, the Lord tells you that the 12 tribes will be oppressed together. Why is it written that way? Children of Israel, children of Judah. because after the reign of King Solomon, the kingdom of Israel was split into the southern kingdom, which would be the children of Judah, and the northern kingdom, which should be the children of Israel. They split, got separated, went into separate captivities. The northern kingdom got snatched up by the Assyrians, while the southern kingdom got snatched up by the Babylonians. But in the last days, the children of Israel and the children of Judah will be oppressed together. So, children of Israel, children of Judah, the world looks at these people as if they're different people. But really, we the same people of the same nation. The world looks at us, as two different groups of people, but we not. This is the same group of people because they all come from Jacob. These are the lost 12 tribes. And, we share a common history, being oppressed, having everything stolen from us, raped, robbed, and murdered, identity snatched from us by Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. So we've been oppressed together this whole time here in America. Now look, at the end of this kingdom, look who's being abducted by ICE, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. We share a very similar history and a very similar fate because we're the same people. And what it say? All that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. That's why ICE is snatching us up. That's why, so-called blacks are, in prisons, as well as so-called Mexicans. We pretty much stuck here with no way out. But yeah, children of Israel, children of Judah were oppressed together. Now, let's get something as Edomite said at the very beginning, now that we know what the video is about. Only Hispanics are being abducted by ICE. Let's call it what it is. That's not arresting somebody. That's not detaining somebody. That's abduction.
I have noticed something very, very strange with ICE.
You see that? He said he notices something very, very strange. Let's play that again.
I have noticed something very, very strange with ICE, and I don't know if you've noticed it or not, but if you notice, when Biden was president, there was millions of people coming across the border, and it was all...
He said he notices something very, very strange. Now, I'm sure a lot more people are noticing this same strange happening. Only Hispanics are being abducted by ICE. To those without this truth, that's a strange thing to see. Or for those who actually going through it, it's a very strange thing to experience. Out of all of the foreigners and immigrants in America, only so-called Mexicans, Venezuelans, the Northern Kingdom, are being snatched up. To the world, it's a strange thing. But to those of us with this truth, it's not strange to us at all. What we see happening to the Northern Kingdom, that's exactly what we expected to happen. And then what? It's coming to the Southern Kingdom next. So-called African Americans, West Indians, Haitians, the Caribbean brothers, etc. We waiting for it to happen to us next, and we seeing it happening with Chicago. Washington, D.C., it's going to be worldwide. So we expecting it to happen is not strange to us at all. That's why Peter said this in the book of 1 Peter 4:12, beloved. Who's the beloved? The 12 tribes of Israel, more specifically, the elect, the house of David. But all Israel in general, beloved, thinking not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you. So, one small example here, being abducted by ICE, being snatched from the field while you at work, being snatched from the construction site, being snatched out of school, or you in Chicago, so-called black apartment complexes being raided and everybody taking on a zip tie, thinking not strange. That's exactly what's supposed to happen according to prophecy. This is Jacob's trouble, a time of trouble that Israel will go through that's never been seen. So, beloved, we can replace that with Israel. So Israel thinking not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you as though some strange thing happened to you. So when our people getting snatched up by ICE, they think, why me? It ain't fair. Like, this is strange. Like, why is it only us? It's nothing strange at all. The Lord already told us that it was going to happen that way. You know, Matthew 24, Luke 21. It will happen that way to the 12 tribes. So eventually, those of us who ain't been through the stuff yet, hey, when we go through it, that was exactly what was supposed to happen. And that's going to be that wake-up call to see who really in this or not. Because the book of Mark chapter 4, I think maybe 17, tells you that when the persecution and the affliction arise, hey, many people going to depart from the faith. So this is exactly what's supposed to be happening. You know, and hold on. And that's why when we jump here as well, 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant. Peter is talking to the Israelites because your adversary, the devil, we see who the adversary is now. We see who the devil is now. The people who oppressed you, raped, robbed, and murdered your ancestors, and still doing so for the past 500 years, and now you're getting snatched up by ICE. That's your enemy. That's the devil. It says, as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Devour can be to destroy, to depress, to oppress, to destroy, to kill, etc. And what we see, the Northern Kingdom, they being devoured by the devil right now. Whether they getting dropped out of cargo airplanes in the middle of the ocean, whether they getting burnt in these nuclear power incinerators, or they getting ate by alligators in alligator Alcatraz, or they in one of these FEMA death camps. Who knows what's happening? Northern Kingdom is being devoured, and the Southern Kingdom is going to be devoured next and worse. Because this is literal. It says, as a roaring lion walketh about. And what do you see all over YouTube and in the cities? You see ICE as a roaring lion walking about. Camouflaged, masked up, wearing regular clothes, they in rentals, undercover vehicles. So that's literal. That's the ICE. Esau Edom, the so-called white man. That's the lion. That's the devil. That's literally walking about the earth right now, seeking whom, seeking what Israelites he may devour. And right now, the primary target, so-called Northern Kingdom, is the Northern Kingdom, so-called Latin Americans, Native Americans. It goes on to say, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. So us as the so-called blacks, you know, the Southern Kingdom, the troubles we face, the Northern Kingdom are going to face the same troubles throughout the world too, especially here at the end and especially in America. So the way I described it was Israel as a whole, but when you narrow it down to the believers, we're going to face certain afflictions throughout the world. Speaking for the elect, 2/3 of our people, they going to get it, but they going to come down worse on the elect. And when they come down worse on us, because we the hopeful elect, thinking not strange, hey, the same afflictions, the same troubles are happening to our brothers and sisters worldwide. Now we're going to get this in the NLT. And I haven't found out how to make this bigger yet, I don't think. Let's get this in the NLT. It says, stand firm against him and be strong in your faith. Remember that your family of believers, and that's what the elect is. It's a family of believers. The family that's literal. The bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The believers, the elect. That your family of believers all over the world is going through the same kind of suffering you are. So it's no wonder that only so-called Mexicans are being snatched up by ICE. But if they are the 12 tribes, that's really a warning of what's going to happen to the rest of us, which has already been happening. But they ain't went hard all the way yet. And I want to show this real quick too. I got some screenshots. It says ICE tried to deport a Native American, and that's crazy because they're the first ones here. It says who really is the immigrant here, and really the immigrant, the illegal immigrant, is even the so-called white man. It goes on to say it's not about border security, it's racism. Yeah, and it's not about border security. It's bigger than racism. This is war against the 12 tribes. That's why I show this screenshot every so often. Trump's war, not on brown skin, but on Israelite people. Because if it was about border security, they would have got all the Chinese that came through there, all the Koreans, all them Africans, all them so-called Middle Easterns and Arabs. And this the thing too, we seen the videos at the border. There was mostly men at the border. It wasn't too many women and children and families coming through the border, mainly men. So if it's about border security, why all these children getting snatched up? Why all these women getting snatched up by ICE? Why they picking on the women and children? And that's the curses. You know, a nation of a fierce countenance who would show no favor, you know, to the young or the old. But we seen lines of Chinese of military age Chinese men. We saw lines and groups of people getting loaded onto buses full of men, getting dropped off at random hotels all across the country. They had buildings and hotels that were shutting down to house these male immigrants. Why you don't hear about none of them getting snatched up? They was coming here by the millions. Why you don't see none of them getting deported or snatched up? And people may talk about that thing with South Korea, how all them and what was it, a Toyota or a Tesla factory got deported. I think that was all staged. That was all a publicity stunt. They watching our videos and they know we putting their info out there that they only targeting the 12 tribes. So Trump deporting them South Koreans, I believe that was all staged. But let's read more into this. It says Letitia, a 24-year-old Native American, was almost deported due to ICE by mistake. And let me make this clear, there is no mistakes with what ICE is doing. So don't ever fall for that. Letitia was set to be released from Polk County Jail after serving a minor sentence for driving with a suspended license, but when her mom came to pick her up, they said there were delays because Letitia was being handed over to ICE. Letitia's family and her tribe quickly mobilized to provide birth certificates and tribal IDs. After several delays, she was finally released. Letitia's not the she's not the only Native American being detained, leading many to wonder was it actually a clerical error or just discrimination? And we can tell you that it was discrimination. And I did the video a few weeks back in which the Supreme Court made the decision that you could racially profile people based on the color of their skin, based off their location, whether it's a Mexican grocery store or it's a job that's commonly worked by Mexicans, or if they speak Spanish or they speak English with a Mexican accent, that you can discriminate these people and harass them and abduct them and deport them based off those physical characteristics. And that's the same here. And they're going to do that, you know, to the other tribes as well. They're going to racially discriminate against so-called Negroes. In January, Navajo Nation's officials released that at least a dozen indigenous people in Arizona and New Mexico had been interrogated or detained by ICE. And we mentioned this at the beginning of the year. But see, Esau got away with words. They said at least a dozen. Okay, first of all, put a number on it because everybody might not know what that means. And when they say at least a dozen, that don't mean it was a dozen. It was actually more, but they say at least so they can lower the number of what's actually happening. How can this happen? The jail where Letitia served her sentence has a agreement with ICE, which allows local police to perform some immigration functions. Their clerical error set in motion deportation proceedings. In this case, they issued a detainer, which allowed the jail to hold her up to an extra 48 hours without providing probable cause. Some courts have ruled detainers are unconstitutional. But again, 1 Peter 5:8, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions, the same troubles are accomplished in your brethren and sisters that are in the world. So everything that's happening to our people and will happen is meant to be, according to prophecy. But keep in mind, the same afflictions. Then let me get that in the NLT again. I need to figure this out. NLT, when it says, remember that you're a family of believers. So these troubles going to happen to the believers and the non-believers of our people alike. But the believers, on the other hand, ICE, Esau, even the white man, they're going to go the extra mile to try to get us to turn our back on the faith. So it's going to happen to the believers and non-believers alike. But eventually, it's going to be narrowed down to focus on the believers. Those who keep the commandments of Yahweh got the testimony of Yahweh Shah. And that's why when we get this in the book of 2nd Ezra, 16 and 70, it says, for this shall be in every place. Because what we just get, the same troubles are accomplished in our brethren that are in the world. So what's going on against the 12 tribes is going to happen everywhere. But it's going to be extra turned up here in America. For this should be in every place and in the next cities. That's all over the world. A great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. That's the 12 tribes. Who is commanded to fear the Lord and to keep his commandments? The 12 tribes. They, ICE, other military agencies, law enforcement agencies, robotic dogs and killer drones shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. So again, this is a war against the 12 tribes. Goes on to say, for they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. It says what? Then they shall be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as the gold in the fire. They shall be tried as gold is tried in the fire. So based off the troubles, us being cast out of our houses, them spoiling us, the great insurrection that's going to come upon the 12 tribes all over America, that's going to let you know who the chosen are, the 12 tribes. So what we see happening to the northern kingdom, they're letting you know they're the Lord's chosen, that the chosen people. So again, then it should be known who are my chosen. Why? Because they're going to go through the fire. They're going to go through the troubles. But amongst the chosen people, there's the elect, which is the remnant of the, a fraction, 1/3 of the house of Israel. It says, hear, O ye my beloved, that's the elect, saith the Lord. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand, and they're now. But they only going to get worse. It says, but I will deliver you from the same. So that's how you know who the chosen going to be. The troubles are going to be concentrated and happen more frequently to the 12 tribes, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. But although most of the troubles are going to be on us as a people, you're going to see these people start being delivered. You're going to see that help from heaven coming through, delivering the beloved, the remnant of the house of Israel. 1/3 of the house of Israel, that's the elect. So this is the first half of it being known who the chosen are. The second half is these people going to start being delivered. And Lord willing, we part of that. And that's why when we get this in the book of Zechariah, chapter 13 and 8, this shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die. So that's going to be the house of Israel. 2/3 are going to be cut off and die. You're about to witness a massacre, a great slaughter against our people. That only proves that we're the Lord's chosen when it happened to us. It says, but the third shall be left therein. See that? The third going to be delivered. That's why it says, and I will bring that third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and I will try them as gold is tried. That's 2 Ezra 16 and 73. Then they shall be known who are my chosen. They shall be tried as gold in the fire. The elect, they're going to go through the fire, but they're going to be delivered from the troubles. 2/3 of our people, they're going to go through the fire, and they're not going to make it out. Whether it's the sword, the pestilence, the famine, or the lake of fire. That could be it too. I will bring the third part through the fire. That's the troubles. That's the affliction. Hey, can be literally the nuclear destruction too. We're going to be brought through that. And we'll refine them as silver is refined. We'll try them as gold is tried. So we being tried. They shall call on my name. I will hear them. I will say, it is my people. They shall say, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is my God. And then when we go here to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 3, verse 18, in those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel. House of Judah being the southern kingdom, Israel being the northern kingdom. And we see Judah walking with Israel right now. For example, in its truth, there's certain groups in Hebrew Israelite camps. They got so-called blacks and Mexicans, so-called blacks, Puerto Ricans, so-called blacks, Native Americans teaching together. And when you look abroad at what else is going on, you're starting to see, so-called blacks and so-called Mexicans protest together, march together, come together, which they came together before during the Black Power movement. Because at the same time, you had the Chicano movement happening, which is pretty much a civil rights movement for Latin American people. But in those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel. They shall come together out the land of the north. This is North America. That's what's being delivered to the land that I have given for an inheritance to your fathers. So the elect, they're going to come up out of here. But the 2/3 of our people, they about to die here. And then what did the scripture say? When we see these things happen, thinking not strange concerning the fiery trial, which is to try you, as though some strange thing has happened to you. So we're going to think, why us? Our people going to think, why us? Why me? Why is it only happening to us? Hey, we thought that in the world. Why only we be harassed and oppressed by the police? Why we get through in jail, shot down in the streets? Well, now we know. Don't think it not strange, but that was supposed to happen. So that's what's going to happen to us as a people. But again, the elect, the believers in the truth, it's going to narrow down to them, and they're going to go through it more together. So yeah, ICE has been messing with the Northern Kingdom, so-called Mexicans, Venezuelans. They messing with the Southern Kingdom too, Chicago, Washington, D.C. But what's not talked about is how they picking on so-called Native Americans. Native American troubles often get swept under the rug and don't get much attention. But it's happening to them too. Because the same afflictions, same suffering has happened with our fellow brothers and sisters throughout the world, especially here in America, proving that we those people. So Lord willing, that was informative. Till next time, Shalom.